Hello everyone and good morning to all of you. Welcome once again in the next video lecture of first chapter. I am SN Oja, PGT Biology, KV number 1 REVA, KVS Regional Office, Jabalpur. Friends, in the previous two topics we have discussed about various modes of asexual reproduction, and in the previous video I have discussed also about the phases of life cycle of those organisms which are reproducing sexually. Now, in the previous topic we have studied about various events which takes place in pre-fertilization stage, and today we are going to see what are the further processes. So let us begin. In the last lecture we have discussed about pre-fertilization stages. Pre-fertilization stages include two important processes. First one is gametogenesis, that is the process of formation of gamete from meiocyte cells. As I told you also that meiocyte cells are the gamete mother cells which undergoes reductional division and form gametes. When once these gametes are formed, different organism has different method of transfer of these gametes, and they are known as gamete transfer. When once the gamete is transferred, then the most important event in the sexual reproduction takes place, that is called as fertilization. So pre-fertilization stage we have already discussed, and now today we are going to discuss about fertilization and post-fertilization events in sexually reproducing organism. But before that, I got various of queries from the previous topic, that is again, sir, how bisexuality and unisexuality are different, or how monoecious and dioecious are different. So just before starting today's topic, let us little bit more focus on these terms and definitions. In previous class also I told you that the organisms are on the basis of sexuality of organisms are classified under various parameters. They can be homothelic, they can be heterothelic, they can be unisexual, it can be bisexual, it can be monoecious, it can be dioecious. So as far as heterothelic and homothelic are there, I didn't receive any doubt, so maybe that point would be clear to you. But now highlighting again the two important terms, one is called as bisexual, another one is unisexual. Friends, it is very simple to understand. Bisexual, bi means two, and sexuality means the power of gamete formation. So bisexual organisms are also called as hermaphrodite organisms. Hermaphrodite organisms. Here, if we talk about an earthworm, if you see, earthworm in a single body, testes and ovaries both are present in a single body. In a single parent body, both the gonads, that is male testes and female ovaries, are present, and hence they are termed as bisexual. Same thing happens with most of the plants also. You all have studied in the previous class 11th topic, and even though before that also in class 10th also. Most of the flowers or most of the angiospermic flowers, they are bisexual. Means what? They have both male, that is stamen, and female, that is carpel part. So when both stamen and carpel are present in the same body, in the same flower, such type of flower are called as bisexual flowers. So bisexuality has a very simple definition. When both male and female gamete is present in the same body, that is called as bisexual. Because bi means two. As far as unisexuality is concerned, most of the invertebrates and higher vertebrates, they are unisexual. Uni means one, and sexuality means again the gamete formation. So these are the organisms which are diversified. Male organism is different from the female organism. Again, let me tell you a very important example, that is of cockroach, which already you have studied in class 11. So male cockroach has testes and female cockroach has ovaries. So testes and ovaries here, they are present in two different organisms. While if you talk about earthworm, both testes and ovaries are present in the same organism. So when both the sexes are present in the same organism, called as bisexual. When both the gonads are present in different organisms of same species, that is called as a unisexual. So I think now these two terms clear to you, that is what is bisexual and what is unisexual. Moving further, I received one more doubt, that is again about monoecious and dioecious. Monoecious, it can be termed as little bit like bisexual. Why? Because in monoecious organisms, both male and female body are present in same body part. So here, as you can see, an algae called as Chara. So in Chara, it is a algae. In Chara, Anthridium and Ugonium. Ugonium is the female part and Anthridium is the male part. So Anthridium and Ugonium both are present in the same plant body. And that's why it is termed as monoecious. While talking about dioecious, Markensia we all know, and some other bryophytes also. These bryophytes have different thallus, and that thallus contain different gametes. For example, a male thallus contains anthridiophore, and these anthridiophore is responsible for formation of anthridia, and the female thallus, it has archegoniophore. So archegoniophore, this is a female thallus, that is the female gamete is present in different thallus, a male gamete is present in different thallus. So this is called as dioecious. Dioecious can be treated as unisexuality. There the organism has only one sex organ, so that it can produce only one gamete. Here also the organism has only one sex organ and it can produce only one gamete. Similarly, monoecious can be treated as unisexual, but in monoecious and unisexuality, bisexuality, there is a small difference. What is that? That only I was discussing yesterday in my previous class also, that unisexuality and bisexuality is the property, if we talk about typically about a plant. So unisexuality and bisexuality, it is a property of a plant. It is not the property of, it is a property of a flower, sorry. It is a property of a flower. It is not the property of a plant. So if suppose there is one flower having female reproductive structure, gynoecium, and having male reproductive structure, androecium, this type of flower is called as bisexual. And if the flower has only androecium or only gynoecium, such type of flower, it has either only androecium or only gynoecium. Such type of flower are termed as, these two type of flower are termed as unisexual. This flower is termed as bisexual. But if we talk about monoecious, there are plants which contain unisexual flower, but they are termed as monoecious. Why? Because they have both male as well as female flowers. So again, if we talk about, if there is a plant having a male flower and having a female flower, so this is the male flower and this is the female flower. If it has both male flower as well as female flower, and both male and female flower is present in the same body of the parent, it is termed as monoecious. So now I think I have made myself very clear about these four terms. These terms are, again, in the previous class also I was discussing, they are a little bit confusing. It is but natural to get confused, because more you study, more you will confuse, and your confusion is acting as a marker that you are studying. If you don't have any confusion, that means you have not studied anything. Okay. Now we are going to discuss another part, and that is basically the most important event in the sexual reproducing organism, in the life cycle of a sexual reproducing organism, and that is called as fertilization. When once the gametes are formed, these gametes has to fuse together. When they fuses together, then a complex process takes place. So fertilization can be defined as event leading to coming together and fusion of two compatible gametes. Here the word compatible gametes is important to form a diploid zygote. Now just try to understand that. There two gametes are formed as a result of reduction division. Now these two gametes fuse together to form a diploid zygote. These two gametes fuse together to form a diploid zygote. But before this fusion, it is again important to check whether both the gametes are compatible or not. So again confused, I think you all are getting confused from compatibility. Now let me explain in some other way. We all have studied about the double fertilization. You all have studied in lower classes also. You have studied about the fertilization events in class 10th also. Now let me give you one example from that. There is a stigma followed by a stamen and then one ovary. This ovary has ovules, synergids, antipodal cells, polar bodies and all this structure. But the female gamete is ovule. So I am concentrating on ovule. A pollinating agent may be air, animal, insect or any such type of pollinating agent brought the pollen grain from some other sources. So it brought the pollen grain from some other sources. Now this pollen grain transfer from the insect and stick to the stigma. Stick to the stigma. Now here it is very important to check the genetic compatibility of the pollen grain. That means a mango flower can only be fertilized by a mango pollen grain only that belongs to the same species. But that we know, if you're talking about the insect has not studied any biology. So insect does not know I have to carry only a mango pollen, or I have to carry only a sunflower pollen, I have to carry only a apple pollen, or whatever the fruit pollen grains are there. This is called as compatibility check. That is, the female flower belongs to a particular species. It will receive the pollen grain of same species. It cannot receive the pollen grain from different species. So that is again here important, and that is only called as compatibility check. So fertilization is various events, it is the various events that lead together and fuse together to form two compatible gametes fuse together, and these compatible gametes fuse to form the diploid zygote. So fertilization includes two processes. First is all the event just before the fusion, and second one is fusion. Because if you extend this diagram, you all have studied that this pollen grain will form a pollen tube, a long pollen tube. The pollen tube has a male nuclei. This male nuclei will fuse with this ovule, and then it will form a zygote. So there are two processes in fertilization. So first process, as I told you, that is the compatibility check. When once the gamete is certified, it is compatible, it will start formation of a pollen tube. When once the pollen tube is formed, then the male nuclei is released in embryo sac of female. When the male nuclei is released here, it causes the fusion of male and female gamete. So the male and female gamete fusion, it is termed as syngamy. In some books, or in some way, in broader way, we can understand we often get confused that fertilization and syngamy is the same process. But let me clarify you here. Syngamy is a step of fertilization. Fertilization is a long step. So syngamy is the last step of fertilization. Syngamy means fusion of male and female gametes, and that is called as the completion of the process of fertilization. Right. So again, let me sum up this. Fertilization, it is a event leading to coming together and fusion of two compatible gametes to form a diploid zygote, and the process of fusion of gametes is known as syngamy. Well, on the basis of site of fertilization, fertilization is again of two types. You must have seen various organisms where large number of gametes are produced, and other organism where only very less number of gametes are produced. The question arises that why an organism produces large number of gametes and why few organisms produces small number of gametes or less number of gametes. So that we will discuss now. Here, on the basis of site of fertilization, fertilization can be external or fertilization can be internal. External fertilization means here both male and female gamete releases out from the body. So male body will release male gamete and female body will release female gamete. And the syngamy of male and female gamete takes place outside the body. That is, zygote formation takes place outside the body. And the development also takes place outside the body. Hence, it is called as external fertilization. While internal fertilization means the male and female gamete, male and female gamete, both gamete fuse inside the body. Both gamete fuse inside the body. And zygote formation takes place inside the body, and hence it is termed as internal fertilization. So fertilization is basically of two types, external and internal. One more thing I would like to highlight here, that when the fertilization is external, it is very important to establish synchrony between mature male and female gamete. Synchrony means what? The moment when the female gametes are released in the water or outside the body, basically it is the water which is acting as a medium. So at the same time, the male gamete should also release its gamete. The male body should also release its gamete. Then only the fertilization takes place. So in external fertilization, synchrony must be there between male and female gamete. If male releases its gamete and female gametes are not available at that time, no fusion will take place. If female releases the gamete and male gametes are not present at that time, again no fusion takes place. Right? But this type of criteria is not always there for internal fertilization. So in internal fertilization, since the fertilization has to take place inside the female body, so female body has the mature female gamete, which if it is ready to accept male gamete and undergoes fertilization, such type of fertilization can follow the internal fertilization. Second point, in external fertilization, for surety of fertilization, for making the fertilization sure, because external fertilization are not that much sure. First of all, the gamete has to release outside the body. What is the biotic or abiotic condition there? Who knows? Whether it is compatible or not, who knows? So, for surety of fertilization, those organisms which are fertilizing through external mode, it releases large number of male and female gamete. And these male and female gamete fuses together to form the zygote outside the body. So this is one more difference between the external as well as internal type of fertilization. Okay. Now moving further. There are two terms. One is called as parthenogenesis and another one is called as parthenocarpy. Well, parthenogenesis, there is one question, that fertilization is not obligatory event for a sexual reproducing organism. Fertilization is not obligatory. Whether this obligatory means compulsory. So whether this statement is true or not true. So let us discuss about that. Fertilization is an important event, but it is not obligatory. We all know that biology is a science of exception. There are so many exceptions in the biology because we have the huge diversity of the organisms. So here, parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis means some organisms like rotifers, bee, lizard and a bird. The bird name normally it is called as a turkey. Okay. Here the female gamete undergo development to form a new organism. The female gamete undergo development to form a new organism without fertilization. So, fertilization is not required here. Again I am repeating, in some organisms like rotifer, bee, lizard, birds and turkey, the female gamete undergo development to form a new organism without fertilization. So here the female gamete does not undergo fertilization, but without fertilization also it can develop into an organism. That is called as parthenogenesis. Little bit confused. Sir, two topics you have taught about fertilization and pre-fertilization event, and now you are saying that fertilization is not important. So yes, it is there. A special case of honeybee we will study in upcoming genetic chapter. That normally a honeybee is, a queen bee is diploid. They are the fertile female queen bee that is diploid, having 32 chromosomes, and male bee is haploid, having only 16 chromosomes. Okay, so there this example can be much more can be enlightened for you. So that topic we will discuss in that portion. Another one, a very closely related term is called as parthenocarpy. Parthenocarpy, carpa. Carpus means fruit. Carpus means fruits. So this is a mode of production of fruits without fertilization. So a fruit is formed without fertilization. So for example, banana in seedless grapes and seedless oranges. Banana we have not seen any seed. And some of the grapes also, if you normal grape, if you are purchasing from the market, you will never find a seed. So, and there are nowadays also there are some oranges also are cultivated on this way. So banana is an example of natural parthenocarpy, and grapes and oranges are the example for artificial parthenocarpy. Natural parthenocarpy and artificial parthenocarpy, that means we are inducing here the parthenocarpic formation. So in parthenocarpic formation, what basically happens? The ovary develops into the fruit without fertilization. Here the ovary, because fruit is nothing more than the ripened ovary. So here the ovary, the complete ovary develops into a fruit. There is a very small difference between parthenogenesis and parthenocarpy. Try to understand it, because it is a very important question also about these two. How the parthenogenesis is different from parthenocarpy, or in board examination they can ask like that also, that how the formation of turkey is different from formation of banana. So in parthenogenesis, the new organisms are formed. Here the female gamete undergoes development. Only the female gamete undergoes development, and it forms a new organism without fertilization. But here the whole complete ovary develops into the fruit. So this is the process. As you can see, carpus means, in biology, carpus means fruit. And let me make myself very clear to the students. Biology is a science of terms. If you are perfect in your terms, definitely most of the definitions are not going to harass you. So try to understand the meaning. Okay. So carpus means fruits. So here the fruit is developed without fertilization from a ovary, and here a female gamete develops to form a new organism without fertilization. So that is the two differences between parthenogenesis and parthenocarpy. I hope it will be now clear to you. Next, so these all are called as a fertilization event. Again, let me sum up the fertilization event. First, it checks the compatibility of the gamete. Second, when both the gametes are compatible, it causes syngamy, that is fusion. On the basis of site of fertilization, it can be external, it can be internal, and there are some exceptions where organisms or fruit, seedless fruits, can be developed without fertilization, which is respectively called as parthenogenesis and parthenocarpy. So at this end, the fertilization event is complete. Next one is post-fertilization event. While talking about post-fertilization, when once the zygote is formed, then what happened to this zygote? Okay, so in post-fertilization event, we are going to study two things. First one is the formation of zygote, and second one is the embryogenesis, as we have already discussed it. Now, let us first of all discuss about the zygote. Zygote is the result of fertilization, where two gametes fuses together to form a single zygote. Zygote then either go meiosis or go mitosis, that depends upon the diversity of an organism, and this zygote undergoes a rapid division to increase its number. It undergoes a rapid division to increase its number, and so that the body cell, the mass of or the number of body cells could be increased. One more very interesting fact about the zygote is a totipotent cell. Now, what do you mean by totipotency? Totipotency means a cell has the power to differentiate into any body organ or any body part. That is called as totipotency. So zygote is all the organism. Maybe if you are talking about a blue whale also, or if you are talking about a banyan tree also, or if you are talking about a small organisms like rat, all these organisms develop from a single cell. All these organisms formed from a single cell, and that is called as zygote. So zygote is the first cell of the life, from where the life begins, and zygote is a totipotent cell. That means it can multiply and it can differentiate into any body organ. In some cases, zygote, as the zygote formed, it directly undergoes the process of multiplication or division. But in other cases, zygote does not undergo direct stage of division. It does not enter into the direct stage of division. But before that, it rests for some time. And this is called as zygospores. If you remember about the fertilization in algae, the sexual reproduction in algae and fungi, if you remember last year, you must have studied about this term zygospores. So here, just for explaining this, I am going to show you one life cycle of the zygomycetes. First of all, let us discuss what is zygospores. So zygospores are the diploid zygote which is covered by a thick covering, and this zygote does not enter into the rapid stage of cell division instantly after fertilization. That means just after fertilization, these zygote take a resting phase, take a resting time, and it protects itself by developing a thick external coat. And when the favorable conditions are there, then it undergoes a rapid division and forms a new thallus or forms a new body. For example, in zygomycetes, when two hyphae are fused together, so you know in the fungus, first one is when the two cells fuse together, then it is one stage is there. Last year you all have studied, that is called as dikaryon stage. So here it is shown dikaryon stage because two cells are fused together, but their nucleus remains separated. Their nucleus remains separated. So first they achieve the dikaryon stage, and then they form the zygote. They fuse together, they form the zygote. This zygote does not enter into the rapid stage of division, but it rests for some time and it develops a thick coat outside their body. So let me explain here. For example, if this is the zygote, it develops a thick external covering. So that this external covering can prevent this cell from unfavorable conditions. When once the favorable conditions are achieved, these zygospores again develop into a new body. They divide meiotically or mitotically and they develop into the new body. So resting zygote is termed as zygospores. Okay, so here there are two terms, small differences are there, that how zygospores are different from the zygote. Okay, well, when once the zygote is formed, as I told you, when once the zygote is formed, it undergoes another process. And the second stage of post-fertilization event, that is called as embryogenesis. The term embryo means formation of embryogenesis. The embryogenesis include two important steps. First one is cell division and second one is cell differentiation. So let us discuss one by one. Cell division. Cell division can be in lower life cycles. If we are talking about bryophytans or thallophytans, there some of the zygote undergoes a reductional division and they form the haploid cell, and then these haploid cells will develop into the various thallus and all. But in most of the angiosperms and in most of the higher plants and animals, the zygote undergoes mitotic division, and due to the simple mitotic division, the zygote increases its number of cells. This process is called as cell division. Which type of cell division? For higher plants and animals, it is mitosis. That is mitotic division happen. When once the mitosis is started, a single cell zygote rapidly develops into various types of cells. When once the good mass of the cell has been accumulated, after that it comes second stage, and that is called as cell differentiation, or also called as morphogenesis. See, one organism is there, one cell is there, that is zygote. Zygote first of all multiplied drastically by the process of mitosis. When once it divides to the ample amount of cell, now these cells will gain a particular function. If you talk about human embryology, you know about the function of ectoderm, mesoderm and endoderm. Ectoderm has are specialized for forming the different organs or different cells of body. Mesoderm is specialized for forming different organ and different cells of body, and endoderm is responsible for forming the different organ and different cells of the body. So this is called as a cell differentiation. Similarly, if we talk about the plants, when once the good amount of cell is formed, these cells slowly convert into the embryo. And these embryo undergoes cell differentiation, and then they achieve different type of cells. As in the class 10th also or class 11th also you have studied about the monocot and dicot embryo. So here I am not differentiating it, I am just simply explaining one part. So here the parts are, for example, cotyledon. So cotyledon is responsible for providing nutrition for developing embryo. We all know. Another one is plumule, which is also called as the shoot primordia. It is responsible for formation of shoot. Another one is called as the radicle. It is also called as the root primordia, that is responsible for formation of root. Now, here the cells are differentiated. If we expect that plumule can function, the plumule can play the role of radicle, not possible. Because here the cells are differentiated. So that's why this property, when once the cells are differentiated, it is termed as pluripotency. In zygote we have, for zygote what term we are using? Totipotency. And when once the cell get differentiate, what term we will use? Pluripotency. So these two terms are there. Please make a note of it. And whenever you are making the detailed notes, please use these terms. Because biology is a science of terms. In the next part of this chapter, we will discuss that how to write the ideal mode answers also for concerns with this chapter. And there, these all terms are play a very significant role. So, mind it. Okay. So, embryogenesis, it includes two steps: cell division, and after cell division, it is cell differentiation, that is called as cell morphogenesis. Well, in the plant and animals, the development of embryo is different. When once the embryo is formed, then it is a very complex process and it includes various steps. So that we will discuss in upcoming chapters. As a reproduction chapter, this whole unit we have to study about the various types of reproduction. But if we talk about the development of embryo in animals, on the basis of development of embryo, animals are classified into oviparous, viviparous, and ovoviviparous. So, on the basis of development of embryo, animals are classified into oviparous, viviparous, and ovoviviparous. Let us discuss one by one. Well, ovipary. Ovipary is a phenomenon of egg laying. That is, fertilization takes place inside the body, and once the fertilization takes place inside the body, an egg is formed. This egg does not develop inside mother body, but when egg is formed, it is laid outside by the organism, and then outside the body, outside the female body, I should say like that, the development of the embryo takes place. So that is called as ovipary. This phenomenon is called as ovipary. Most of our birds are performing the same phenomenon. So, for example, any bird you know that also that ostrich egg is the largest cell. In class 11th in chapter cell biology, you have already discussed that largest egg that is called as of the organism of ostrich. So here what happens, inside this egg, the embryo is present. Inside this egg, the embryo is present, and it is covered externally by a calcareous shell to protect the embryo from external adverse conditions. And inside this calcareous shell, the embryo develops. It grows into the small chick, and when it develops into the small chick, then it breaks its eggshell and comes outside. So this phenomenon is called as ovipary, or such organisms are called as oviparous. Another one is vivipary or viviparous. So here again the fertilization is internal. Zygote formation takes place inside the body. And when once the zygote is completely formed, it undergoes development, and that is also inside the female body. So fertilization and embryogenesis both takes place inside the body. And when once the embryo is mature enough, they give, such females give birth to their young ones. Here, most of the animals, most of the organisms are connected. For example, in human embryo, the human fetus is connected with the mother body through a cord, which is called as an umbilical cord, or also called as a placenta. So the embryo get nourishment from the female body through an umbilical cord or placenta. But there are some other animals also. For example, marsupials. Marsupials are also viviparous animals, viviparous mammals. But here the marsupials, they give birth to the immature young one. They are non-placental. Placenta is not present. So they give birth to the young one, but the young one is immature. And then in the marsupium, you all have seen a kangaroo having a pouch just near to the stomach. So that marsupium, that is called as a marsupial membrane, and in that marsupium, a young one develops. And when once the young one develops, grow, it jump out from the marsupium and live an independent life. So that is called as the viviparity. That is the phenomenon of giving birth of organisms. Another one is ovoviviparity. A very interesting phenomenon. In ovoviviparity, it is the phenomenon of female retaining the egg after fertilization. So female retain their egg after fertilization and allowing the development of embryo inside the body. So here the fertilization is also internal. The development of embryo is also internal, that is inside the female body. But mother body does not provide any extra nourishment as placenta is absent. Mother body does not provide any extra nourishment. No extra nourishment is provided to the fetus from the organism as the placenta remains absent. So that is again important. Here we have two very good examples. One is shark and another one is rattlesnake. So shark and rattlesnake, they both are ovovivipary. That is, the female undergoes internal fertilization. When the fertilization is internal, the development of embryo is also internal inside the body, but without providing extra nourishment, and placenta is completely absent. So these are the development or embryogenesis of animals. Let's have a look about the plants also. So in plants, the embryo development takes place. The embryo development, or basically called as a fruit development or seed development. So seed and fruit formation takes place after the fertilization. You all know about double fertilization and the events of double fertilization. So after fertilization in plants, the ovary, this ovary has an ovule. After fertilization, this ovule develop into an embryo, develop into a seed, and the ovary wall develop into the fruit. Okay, so the wall of ovary along with ovule, along with the seed, this is called as seed, and this is the external wall, that is, it is called as pericarp, that is external wall of the fruit. So that takes place. In some of the plants, endosperm retain. In some of the plants, the endosperm is completely consumed. So that also we will discuss in second unit, that what are the cases where the plants retain its endosperm, what are the cases where the plant does not retain any endosperm. But usually, if a seed is formed, so as you can see here, various types of plants and their fruits. So here there is one seed with a pericarp. So pericarp is the external covering, and seeds are the embryo. Here also it is a seed and a pericarp. Then again it is a seed and a pericarp, external fruit, and then seeds and pericarp. So on the basis of varieties of the ovary, whether the ovary is syncarpous, whether the ovary is apocarpous, whether it is multilocular or it is unilocular, there variety types of fruits are formed. In this process, the development takes place through the development of a seed or embryo takes place through endosperm, and from where the endosperm will obtain its nutrition. Endosperm obtain its nutrition through the cells of nucellus. Initially it obtained the nutrition from the cells of nucellus. Okay, so that is complete seed and fruit formation in the plant. So this is all about this chapter. Again, it is a simple introduction of reproduction and various events of reproduction which takes place in asexual and sexual mode of reproductions. It's your time begins. It is the question time. Definitely more and more questions as we are proceeding with the topic maybe arises or must be arises in your mind. So keep on questioning. It is very important. You can directly ask the question to your respective biology teachers, and you can ask the questions to me also. There are various questions in your NCERT book also which is given. And remember, for tackling the biological question, two things are very mandatory. The first one is, you should understand the language of question, because that is very important. And second one is, how perfectly you can write the answer. So these two things we will drill in upcoming lectures, in upcoming topics, and you also can keep on drilling at your home. So give me your permission. So thank you for being with me. Stay home, stay healthy, and stay enlightened. Keep on revising. I will be again present before you by taking the next chapter, that is sexual reproduction in angiospermic plants. Till then, take care and bye-bye.